Welcome to another live episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 474. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this evening, Gail from nyfights.com. We hope to have Daniel from 4Boxing News in the Instagram on at some point. But until then, you're just going to have to deal with Gail and myself. So,
That's
Gail, how
right.
you
Deal
doing
with
this
it.
evening? For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report live podcast YouTube show. Well, podcast and live YouTube show discussing all things boxing, no matter ways when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. It will get discussed. If you wish to email us, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you check the description, if you're checking us out on YouTube, uh, you will see links to where to find us all over social media, links to the our Facebook page, links to the Twitter page, links to the YouTube channel. For the time being, we still got a Tumblr account, but I'm gonna shut that down eventually. Also, links to IG. If you wish to donate, you can do so via Cash Me or PayPal. Let donation be the best nation. Wouldn't matter so if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you wish to contribute. It will greatly help, particularly when it comes to production behind the scenes. If you check out the description via YouTube, you may see something new there, something called Nivrod Fragrances. During my time off, I've been doing, yours truly has been doing some hustling. Um, if folks follow me, particularly on IG and TikTok, you may know that I am pretty heavy into all things cologne, all things smell good. Well, um, during our brief hiatus, your dude was able to secure the first sponsorship with Pound for Pound Boxing Report, vis-a-vis Nevrod Fragrances. Nevrod Fragrances is a fragrance house based out of Florida. Uh, Let me put the info here in the public chat. If you use the code Michael WP4P, you will get 15% off on all purchases from Navarre Fragrances. Give me a second while I put the info up here, as well as brief information about Navarre Fragrances. Their two main fragrances are a spring summer fragrance called Irrelevant. Just think of it as a Caribbean vacation in a bottle with some coconut, with some mango, with some orange and some almond. And now that there's a hint of fall in the air, I strongly suggest you check out the other fragrance in their house, Diomari, kind of a sweet, fruity, incensey vibe with some pink berries, some mandarin, um, a little bit of oud, a pumpkin note. But then again, yeah, while your guy was on hiatus, I was able to secure some sponsorship. Again, the code is Michael WP4P. Those are fragrances. Put that there in the chat. That's where you can go if you're looking for some smell good, either for yourself or a significant other. And again, the code is Michael WP4P for 15% off on all fragrances. Everything in store. She also it's a woman-owned fragrance house. The owner also has skin and body care products. So again, um, check out Navarre Fragrances. Um, if you're interested in anything, may I suggest, Gail, with the cold weather coming up, you check out for the cooler weather in where you live out in Cali. Check out Diomari. I personally think you will really like it. So again, Navarre Fragrances. Use that code right there, Michael W P4P, to get 15% off. The fragrances are quite affordable. Full bottles, nothing over $60. If you wish to get a 10 ml travel, you will spend no more than $20 on each of her travel sizes. So yeah, I suggest you check that out. So let's get things going by recapping what took place this past weekend, Gail. One main fight, world title fight at 130 pounds. IBF champion Eduardo Nunes fought former world title challenger, multiple world title challenger Christofer Diaz. Uh, Entertaining scrap, Gil. The power of Nunez, in my opinion, was the difference as he secured multiple knockdowns in this fight against Diaz, who proved himself very tough. The thing that got my eyebrows raised was afterwards, where Nunez called for a unification bout with countryman Emmanuel Navarrete. Navarrete responded earlier today. He said he's all for it, particularly if it's in Mexico. He considered it as a big bout. Your thoughts on the fight and the likelihood that we see a unification bout, junior lightweight unification bout between Nunez and Navarrete?
Well, I know it was a quiet weekend on the boxing front. A lot of people are, we're still on a little bit of the summer break leading into the big fight week coming up here. But damn, if you missed that fight, you need to go back to your DAZN feed or to YouTube and watch the highlights. It was a banger. It was a fun fight. It's a fight that legitimately belongs on the short list for fight of the year. It was that good. You knew it was going to be all action. And what made the fight so good wasn't only Nunes. He did what we expected. I don't think Christofer Diaz has looked this good in years. He came to play. He was in phenomenal condition, which allowed him to go hard all 12 rounds, which really mattered. And he was crisp. He still has plenty of power. What was the difference? Yes, Nunes is the more powerful puncher. But Nunes also, like a lot of Mexicans who like to stand in, they can't do that unless they have a good chin. We praise Canelo
Yeah.
for how tough his chin is. Well, Nunes has got a little of that too. He got cracked more than once by Diaz, and he stood up to it really well. The difference in the fight itself was I want to say it was seventh round where he scored 2 knockdowns. Neither of them was really devastating, but it shows you how much power he's got that Nunes didn't have to hit Diaz flush to get the knockdowns. The first one, he really threw Diaz more off balance than anything. He hit him with a hard overhand right, but Diaz put his glove down on the canvas and it was super obvious. So, yep, that's a knockdown. He got another one later in the round. He didn't actually hit him flush at all, even to the head. The same right landed, but Diaz was in motion and he really caught Diaz on the shoulder. But he punches so hard, it blew him across the ring. But hitting him on the shoulder, that's a hell of a punch. That was a 10-7 round right there. The cards were 117, 109 twice, and I want to say it was 115, 111, which shows you that without those 2 knockdowns, now Nunes would have still won, but it would have been razor thin decision in his favor. And that's how good the fight was. Really, really competitive, fun. It looked like it could go either way. And adding to it was the fact there was an absolutely wild crowd. Nunes is fighting at home. First time he's had a hometown fight in quite a few years in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. Believe me, we all know how many great action Mexican fighters have come out of Los Mochis and Sinaloa in
That was an
general. With
old school crowd, old school
coastal
Jorge
state.
Paez crowd.
Absolutely, and a lot of
When he
the
fought in Mexico.
OGs were there. Eric Morales was ringside in the second row, holding court. Some of those other guys were there. I think Beltran was there. But yeah, it was a party, and every fan was in full voice, especially through this main event. So it was a lot of fun from that perspective as well. I do think Nunes suffered a little bit from those hometown jitters, and he admitted after the fight that he was nervous fighting at home as a world champion. We've seen that happen before. I mean, think about the near disaster Regis Prograis had for this big homecoming fight, and he just looked horrible. Nunes didn't do that, but he didn't blow Diaz out either. And in the audience, along with the OGs, there were some of the newer guys, including, as you mentioned, Navarrete, who seemed to be having a darn good time at the fights as a fan. it looks like the cut that he suffered against Charlie Suarez here in December is pretty well healed. And yep, he was sitting there with that, just megawatt smile that he's got. Eddie Hearn points at him. They invite him up into the ring after the fight. They goof around a little. A lot of respect between he and Nunes. There's no animosity. And they're like, "Yep, we'd like to get this on." And Nunes shook his hand, and he's like, "Yep, we've shook hands on it. It's a deal." And they faced off. Yeah, they could barely stay serious. They were enjoying themselves. It'd be a great fight. It'd be a tremendous action fight. Be crazy, no matter where you stage it. Mexico, Hearns talked about putting it either in Phoenix or in San Diego. Thank you, please. We would love it. Navarrete does good numbers here. But Navarrete owes Charlie Suarez a rematch because of that just nutty fight they had with that horrible cut that he suffered. And Suarez won that fight going away. He got robbed
Yeah, he
of the
did.
cards.
Yeah, he did.
And they do need to have a rematch. Will Suarez step aside money to let him fight Nunes and then have the potential of getting that rematch with 2 belts on the line? Or there's the other potential that Nunes beats Navarrete. That's very possible. And then there's no belt on the line. Man, I don't know. If I'm Suarez, I don't know that I'd be willing to roll the dice. He is 36. He's not going to get a lot of title fight opportunities left. I don't know that he wants to gamble that Navarrete fights Nunes and loses. And then it's just a rematch. Still a great fight. He'd still get paid well. But there's no prize. There's no prize. So we'll see. The fans aren't going to lose either way, really. They're both great fights. There are other players in the division. It's, these guys all seem to be willing to fight each other. I do think a unification fight should be next for Nunes. He's in a good position from a competitive standpoint to do it. Eddie Hearn seems very high on him. So we'll see what happens. But it was a great little card. Undercard was fun. There was almost a stunning upset by a local kid, who took on a fight against a very highly rated flyweight contender. He took that fight on 24 hours notice, and he nearly beat him. In fact, he was robbed too. The crowd was furious. So it was just a great card all the way around. You don't need to know the names, honestly. There's always good entertainment. Those fans demand it. They are into it from the opening bell of the earliest 4-rounder, and they're just fun to watch. And props to the broadcast crew. Corey Erdman, who is one of the best play-by-play guys in boxing, and he seems to always be sitting ringside when these sort of unexpected fights of the year break out. And Dave Rosado was the color commentator. They both did a superb job on this card. And I don't know how they could hear themselves in there. I mean, it was that loud. And the way that it was mic'd, the audio out of that venue they were in, I don't know if they had extra mics on the crowd or not. I mean, truly, there were times even at home you could barely hear them.
It's called having high expectations, Gail. Something
Yep.
that's been lacking in the sport throughout the year. And because of that, and due to the fact that the sport has been, let's just admit it, mostly lame duck up until this point, that kind of fight and that kind of card was sorely needed from an enthusiast, hardcore fan standpoint. Nunes got the belt basically because Kakashi ducked him, didn't want any parts of him, and he's reaping the benefits with an entertaining scrap, and hopefully lead to a unification against Navarrete, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in your neck of the woods, whether it's in a place like Phoenix, I say bring it on. I say Hearn and Aram have a meeting of the minds and make that fight. Unification is something we sorely need right now in a division that I think needs a standard bearer. The winner of that potential the winner of that potential fight was certainly fit the bill. Let's move on to let's move on to some news here. And you put this, I'm gonna pin this. While we were off, news broke that Javante Tate Davis and Jake Paul have agreed to fight in an exhibition, and I want to say November. Um, it was met with a lot of cynicism from the box for many in the boxing community. I share that cynicism. I'm not a fan of this, but money talks and it's going to happen. I'm going to pin this, Gail, a bit of an update here, and something that a lot of people overlooks in the hysteria over the announcement. Details, please.
So yeah, Jake Paul announced in his Most Valuable Promotions announced that this fight was going to happen in Atlanta on November, let me double check that date. The date November 14th, State Farm Arena. Um, there's fight posters, some, which when coming from the promoter seems to render something official these days. The State Farm Arena, MVP has pages devoted to the fight. There's a pre-sale sign up for tickets. But let's just hang on a second, because what's been overlooked and is starting to come out is the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission. That's the state commission that governs Georgia sporting events, including combat sports, has not approved the fight, has not approved it. They do need to approve exhibitions. All commissions, even if it's an exhibition, still need to approve it because of the dangers inherently involved in combat sports. And the commissioner, the chairman of the commission, who's a guy named Rick Thompson, has been quoted the last couple of days saying, it's not happening. It's not happening. He says MVP, first of all, broke the state commission's conduct of promotion by promoting the main event before it got approval. And there is a rule in its regulations that says you can't do that. You got to get permission before you can start making announcements. And there is apparently another clause in their rules that says you cannot have more than a certain weight discrepancy, even in a catch weight fight, even in an exhibition. They'd be 60 pounds apart, approximately. And the Georgia Commission flat out doesn't permit that. Would they waive the rules? Can they waive the rules? Would they be legally liable should, Jake, injure Tank, even in an exhibition? So their meeting is set, their next meeting for September is set on the 18th, mark it, 18th. They're going to discuss it, and we'll find out whether they do in fact give them a pass and let it continue, or whether Jake and Tank are going to have to shop for another venue. Now, apparently, Jake was on a talk show this morning somewhere, podcast, and said, no, it's on. No, it's on. We're good. We're fine. No, everybody gets all upset and agitated about these things. Well, that didn't directly address the very specific comments made by the head of the commission, Rick Thompson. And hallelujah, thank God. Will common sense actually prevail thanks to a state commission, or at least make everybody think about it? Let's hope so. Now,
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. That makes too much. If they were to step in and do that, color me skeptic, but that makes too much sense.
well, here's the deal too. And here's why sometimes the state commissions, just wave it through, because they know if they don't approve it, somebody else will. Now, will it get approved by a major commission who knows what the hell it's doing, who actually has some concern for the fighter's health? New York, New Jersey, California, Nevada, none of them are going to approve it. Hell no, ain't happening there. Would it get approved in Kansas, West Virginia, Florida, North Dakota, Ohio? Maybe. That's what you may very well have happen, is another
And that's
state
the
that says,
thing.
yeah, we'll do it. I mean, that's your problem. I would love to see the Georgia Commission stand on its principles, you know, but everybody gets it. There's money involved. I imagine the officials at State Farm Arena are going to lean on them very hard. Oh, it's only an exhibition. No matter, and ladies and gentlemen, no matter what you've read on social media or heard him say about, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to knock him the F out, it's an exhibition, and under the rules of an exhibition, you cannot do that. You cannot
Right.
even try. So stay tuned, everybody. This is not exactly locked in. Do not spend your hard-earned money for a ticket until you know this thing is approved and sanctioned. And right now, it's not anywhere
Right. And I say, do not spend your hard money, earned money for a ticket,
at all.
period. Because this is, going on a rant here, tangent. I get these exhibitions. It was cool when Jones and Tyson did it a few years back, but the stuff is getting out of hand. Who asked for this? Who really wants this? And if we're going to be honest here, Gail, much like Turkey al Sheikh, Paul has been getting his way, unfortunately, right? Uh,
Money
whatever he
talks.
seemingly,
Money always
yeah, and
talks.
because of that, and that's the part.
Yeah.
The money talk, the money and the style is overweighing the substance. On the surface, there's no reason that this should happen. This dude walks around. I don't care if he's ranked at cruiserweight, which he should not be, by the way. This dude walking around in the 220s, and he's fighting, and he's competing in a quote unquote exhibition in a dude against a dude who 90 pounds less.
Yeah, he made it to 133.8 in his last fight. So
Right.
so I looked it up to make sure I was stating this accurately. According to the Georgia Commission rules, no fight can be sanctioned if the weight difference between the boxers exceeds 9 pounds. Hello? It's going to be 9 times 6 easily. So,
This is a money grab. That's all this is
oh,
from both men.
they all have been. I will give Roy and Mike a pass on their exhibition because they were more evenly matched in age and size. And let's remember, everybody, that happened during the pandemic. We didn't have a whole lot to watch other than the bubble fights were just barely getting going. So the fact that it drew attention and people watched, it was an outlier. It was under such odd circumstances, but it got everyone hyped up like, oh man, we can make some money doing this stuff. Well, and Jake pulled it off one more time with Mike Tyson, but this is just ridiculous. And I blame Tank more than I blame Jake. We know what Jake's about. He has, he has the fan base and he has the personal style among his fans to be able to sell this stuff. Tank, I would bet my hard-earned money on the fact that Tank is taking this fight because he does not intend to fight anymore. That's
Right.
it. And
Ding, 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 ding.
how could he? How could he? He knows deep down in his heart when he's lying in bed at night staring at the ceiling because he can't fall asleep, he knows Roach Jr. beat him. And I don't think he wants to risk that unbeaten record and his legacy possibly losing to him in a rematch. And we look at the scorecards and we remember Roach's performance and how good it was, how unexpectedly strong it was against Tank. What we forget is all the shenanigans Tank pulled in the ring and got a pass for, turning his back on the referee, getting his face wiped in the corner during a round. What the hell? Yeah, he is
The
done. He is mentally gone from boxing.
the embarrassment from the performance and the
Yeah,
backlash he got, being booed immediately after the fight, and he's still getting
yeah,
criticized now, not only for that rematch, but we all know if he doesn't fight Roach, we all know the fight there's out there for him. Shakur.
absolutely. Well, and if the rumors and the discussion about Shakur and Tiafimo are true, props to both of them. That's going to make Tank look bad because they're going to take the fight. And yeah, and yeah, his latest legal issues have disappeared nor behind him, but clearly he's got issues outside the ring he needs to deal with. And that can so much affect what happens in the ring with those sort of worries and distractions, criticism. I can't imagine he's ever heard those kind of boos before. That's gotta be a blow.
And speaking of exhibitions that we did not ask for, news broke this past weekend that Floyd Mayweather and Mike Tyson have announced that they're going to fight in an exhibition in 2026. As disgusted as I am with the possibility of Paul fight getting in the ring with Tank, I'm equally disgusted at this notion of Floyd fighting or getting in an exhibition with Mike Tyson. We all saw Mike Tyson embarrass himself against Jake Paul. And it seems like to Floyd, all this is a dude who's insecure. All this is a dude who's seeing another person getting all this attention for exhibitions and all this. And he's hungry to get that spotlight. It's ridiculous. It's kind of sad. Uh I mean,
Though
sir,
Floyd's always been like that, right? There were so many times there was a big fight week in Las Vegas over the last, 20 years where he wasn't involved. And man, he'd find some way to make a big announcement that week about a fight or some venture or throw a party or promote a card and be there. I mean, he did that over and over and over. But I got to tell you, I mean, if we think Jake and Tank is bad, Floyd and Mike Tyson, that jumps the shark as far as boxing exhibitions. That's just insane.
sir, you worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You're a Hall of Famer. You
Yeah.
considered one of the elite fighters that's ever laced on a pair of gloves. Be content in that. Or better yet, build up your roster at Mayweather Promotions. Why are you doing this?
And let's look. I just noticed this. I just learned this today. For those of you who have seen or been fans of the Netflix reality competition program Physical 100, which is a Korean based sort of mega CrossFit crossed with Squid Games. Nobody gets killed. No, don't worry about that. Big athletic competition matching teams of people from all sorts of cross disciplines. Well, the third season is coming up and it is going to be different international teams against each other. And guess who one of the competitors is? It came out
Don't. Oh
today.
Lord.
Well, no, this is legit sport, these guys. It's fun to watch if you've never seen it. One of the competitors for one of the international teams is Manny Pacquiao. Good for him. And if you've seen what these guys have to do, there's some crazy physical stunts they have to perform. Come on, Floyd. Manny looks even halfway decent competing in Physical 100 Season 3. He's going to put you to shame.
Just ridiculous. Um, Boxing should be better than this. Both Floyd and Mike Tyson should be better than this. This is
Well,
farce. This is a farce.
as one OG promoter said to me not that long ago, there used to be honor among thieves, at least.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, it was off the air.
Just, I'm disgusted. Let's move on. Um, let's move on to the bulk of what we was going to talk about, and let's previewing what's it's going to be. I hope, fingers crossed, a very very fantastic weekend when it comes to boxing. The biggest weekend of the year. We'll get to the Canelo, Crawford, and Inoue Akhmadaliev fights. We'll talk about that last, right? But let's talk about a couple of fights that's happening. World title fights that's happening leading up to that Thursday. We're recording this on September 8th. I think on the 10th, I believe it is. Anthony Olascuaga is defending his flyweight title against Juan Camacho-Rivera. Olascuaga didn't look great his last time out in Japan. Um, a bit fortunate to win, in my opinion, but he got the job done. At his best, he's really explosive, really dynamic. But when he's off of his game, or as his last fight appearance proved, if you have a good jab and good ring IQ and you have experience, you can expose some flaws and you can kind of neutralize Olascuaga a bit. But what make of you in his upcoming fight against Camacho?
It's going to be Thursday the 11th at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas, which is the home for Fight Week. No Fight Week festivities at any of the MGM properties. So that's a big change for those of you who are used to going to Las Vegas and assuming all these activities take place at either the MGM Grand or one of its properties. So it will be on DAZN at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. I like Olascuaga, he's a game little flyweight. He's got a very thin record, 9-1, 6 knockouts, uh, facing a guy who's got considerably more experience at 19-1 in Camacho, but not quite as much power percentage wise. He has 8 knockouts. Still, demonstrates he's got enough power to get going. This is intended to be a demo, this card, of this sort of prospect competitor series that Ring and the Saudis and Dana White are talking about starting next year, which they're going to be calling the Underdog. So technically, the main event doesn't really fit that mold because it's a championship fight, but they want to draw some attention, and they've got a lot of folks in town for Fight Week. So that this is their sneak preview of the Underdog Prospect Series. It's Olascuaga's third defense, Camacho's first title fight opportunity. I think Olascuaga has been one of those guys who, as the boxing saying goes, when you get a belt, you fight 10% better just by having the belt. And I do think that's true. He trains alongside Junto Nakatani. That doesn't hurt. When you're part of a stable with some serious talent, that makes a real difference. I think he'll get past Camacho. Will he knock him out? Eh, if he wants to impress the Saudis and Dana White, maybe he'll be motivated. We'll see. I do think it'll be a fun fight to watch, however it goes. And then there are 4 other fights on the undercard. The one name probably some of you will know is Justin Valoria, who's a super featherweight prospect at 9-0 with 7 knockouts. And if you say Valoria, yes, he's the nephew of former world champion Brian Valoria, who's also his
The
trainer.
Hawaiian Punch.
Hawaiian Punch, man, who Brian Valoria is starting to get a quietly impressive resume as a trainer.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, keep an eye on that as he starts acquiring more talents and settles in. The other guy that's of interest is Jaleel Hackett. He's also fighting at super welterweight. against an opponent named Elijah Vines, who I don't know, but who is undefeated at 8-0 with 7 knockouts. Who knows whether that good looking resume is sort of a paper tiger. But if you are in Las Vegas, you don't have anything else going on, it's always worth checking these little fight week cards out. If you're home Thursday night with nothing else to do and you got a DAZN subscription, check it out.
And I see Daniel has joined us. Daniel from For Boxing News and the Inscriber. Um, that world title fight and card is going to take place Thursday 11th. I said the 10th. My apologies. On Saturday, in Northern Ireland, Gail and Daniel, two Irish fighters, Lewis Crockett, Paddy Donovan, fighting for the recently vacant IBF 147-pound title that was vacated by Boots Ennis. For me, Gail and Daniel, uh, it ain't just the matchup, but it's going to be the environment for me. Two fighters fighting in their home backyard. The crowd, the scene, it should be nuts. I'm just going to watch it just for that alone, just to hear the chants and the roars and the cheers, and the drunk fans. That's all I'm. That's all I'm about. All that really.
Yeah, an all Irish fight fest. That is one of the most beautiful things that you will be able to see, especially when you have a belt on the line. It doesn't really matter who wins in this aspect on it if you gauge the environment. But I have a feeling Paddy's probably going to take it in, but it's going to be fun. Like it's going to be soccer chants throughout the night.
Your quick thoughts, Gail.
Oh, these regional rivalry fights are so much fun. The crowd, you're right, Daniel, will be completely lit up. And the first fight, was so highly anticipated as it was. It ended up being just this complete disaster. So they're getting a do-over. And while the rest of the boxing world either turns their eyes toward Las Vegas or some toward Japan, the fight fans in the UK and in Western Europe, they cannot wait for this fight because of how wild the first one was, even though it ended up in a no contest. So let's see what these guys have to prove. They're gonna let it rip. They're gonna leave it all in the ring. It's gonna be one of those kind of fights.
Yeah, I'm here all for it. Like I said, I just want. I'm here for the crowd and the atmosphere, more just as much, if not more, for the fighters. Again, technical issues on my apologies, y'all. Crocker and Donovan again are going to fight this upcoming Saturday, September 13th in Belfast. Um, let's move on to the big fights, the two big main fights of the weekend. Yes, I know there are going to be undercard fights, fights on the undercard of Canelo and Crawford, but let's face it, we're all here from the main event. That's it. Uh, Crawford, two-time undisputed champion. His last bout, he won a belt at 154. The intrigue and the fascination is here. Is can he do it again? Two weights higher, fighting a Canelo, who I think has seen his best days, but he's still undisputed. He's still one of the biggest, if not the biggest name in the sport. Now, we're going to be really honest here. This should be Canelo and David Benavidez for this date, and Crawford should be fighting a Boots Ennis at 54 or 47, but we're getting what we get. I'll begin the conversation with you, Daniel. I personally think that Crawford can do it because Canelo doesn't. His work rate has lessened, has dropped off. Excuse me, over the last 2-3 years. If Crawford can carry his speed and if he has his legs at the higher weight, I think his work rate and I think his intelligence can get it done. I think that Crawford can win a decision here. What say you?
I've been going back and forth ever since this fight was announced because obviously Bud has a longer reach. Bud has the attitude to carry himself into the fight. And we've said it plenty of times. Bud is country strong. So that should be able to carry over. But then you take into the account that he's been doing that while trying to drain himself to be from lightweight to 140 to welterweight, now to junior middleweight, and now super middleweight. Wherein you compare it out to a Canelo who has only moved up 2 divisions and is more comfortable in this weight. That's a key factor to me in that area. Bud can carry the strength, but can he carry the weight that he hasn't had to carry on fight night before? Where especially a weight that Canelo is more than comfortable doing. So that's going to be the interesting aspect of it. Because if Bud can establish the jab, we have to remember he has a longer reach than Canelo. If he can establish the jab, he can make it really frustrating, especially since Canelo really does better job counterpunching, but he's more economical when it comes to the counterpunching as of late. But if he can't carry that over, if Bud can't carry that extra weight over, it wouldn't surprise me if Canelo wins it by decision. That being said, my personal pick would be Canelo by decision, because that's the only part that worries me about Bud. Like, you're carrying essentially an additional, in all reality, like for 147, 168, you are legitimately carrying an additional 21 pounds that you haven't had to carry before for fight night.
Your keys to the contest, Gail.
I'm like Daniel, concerned about Crawford coming up in weight, but I'm also more concerned about his inactivity. Bud's only fought once in the last 2 years. Once. And that was the fight last summer against Israel Madrimov. His first fight at 154. As talented as Madrimov is, Crawford was, the expectations were pretty high for his performance. He barely got that decision. Let us all remember, he barely got that decision. I was ringside for that fight. I was with a lot of very senior boxing media. And at the end of that fight, we all looked at each other. And of all people, it was Mark Kriegel who started the conversations like, well, okay, I'm going to say it. Who else thinks that Madrimov won that fight? And one by one, everyone was like, yep, yeah, I think Crawford lost that fight. Well, he didn't. He got it on the cards. So here he is, taking a chance, betting on himself, highly motivated. If you can believe some of the photos that you've seen of him and how muscular he is, how he's put on the weight, he did do it the right way. He didn't just pack it around his torso. A lot of his weight's to the upper body, and he does have a formal Olympic wrestling style background. He coaches his kids. He's built the weight much as a Greco-Roman style wrestler would. He's got to carry all that stuff around. Daniel, you're right. It's a lot of weight. Think about somebody, whatever weight they normally box at, putting on a 20 or 25 pound rucksack vest, right? Which are all the rage if you're a runner or a walker or hiker, and having to move around the ring wearing that thing. Crawford's going to do the equivalent of that. But even more than that, he's only fought once in 2 years. How many times have we said it over and over? Activity matters. And in this fight with two guys who are arguably incredibly talented, locks for the Hall of Fame no matter what happens on Saturday, I just can't see Crawford in a tug of war, pulling the middle of that rope over the middle to his side. I do think it'll be close. I think Canelo will win by decision. I do not think there's going to be a knockout. For everybody saying, oh, well, remember, oh, everybody thought it was going to be close against Spence, and it wasn't. Crawford wiped the floor with him. That was a very long 2 years ago, a very long 2 years ago against a fighter that I think in Spence was a lot more damaged from his accidents and other residual medical issues than we realized. I really do. Canelo doesn't have those issues. He's completely healthy. I think that Canelo also benefits so much from motivation, especially at this late stage of his career. He really needs to get up for a fight. Who could possibly get up for a fight with William Skull? No disrespect to Skull, but damn, nobody wanted to see it. It was a mandatory to set this fight up. Canelo just had to swallow hard and do it. And it was a horrible, horrible fight. And, you know, everybody admits it. Canelo's excuse was Skull running around the ring. You know, that's all water under the bridge. Let's hope that nobody really remembers that fight. But Canelo has been a lot more active than Bud. So I think that'll make a difference. Just like we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the show, how important it is at this level to have a good chin. Man, if Gennady Golovkin couldn't crack Canelo, I don't think Bud can. I really don't. So Bud has to outbox him if he's going to win. Ugh, and with that weight, I'm not sure. And let us also remember one other factor that's out of either of their control. It's in Canelo's house in Las Vegas. When it goes to the cards in Las Vegas, it always tilts a little bit in Canelo's favor. Dimitri Bivol barely got the win on the scorecards in a fight where he probably won 10 rounds out of 2, and he barely won. Crawford will have to do the same to get a decision, and I just don't think he can do it.
Hours after we get to witness Canelo and Crawford in Las Vegas, in Nagoya, Japan, you have the return of Naoya Inoue as he fights his mandatory MJ Akhmadaliev. And my fear is, within all the bluster and all the hoopla over Bud and Crawford, people are going to miss what I think is going to be a damn good fight, especially since, as it stands, as of this live recording, we don't know if for folks stateside, there has been no carrier in the States to pick up that fight. I think that Akhmadaliev, Gail, we're going to see him at his high level best. He's been wanting to fight Inoue for a long time. I think people don't know or don't remember how good he is. I think that there's been a change in Inoue ever since that his just standout performance against Cool Boy Fulton, which he just looked brilliant. I think that Inoue has been flat on his feet more. We've seen him get knocked down. We've seen him get buzzed. And the thing that MJ has that Inoue hasn't seen in a long while, maybe ever, is someone with the combination, with the hand and foot speed combination and the footwork of Akhmadaliev. He can go in and out, side to side. He can change angles, and he has very fast hands and throws in combination, along with good pop and determination. I know a lot of folks want to see Inoue and Nakatani, but he's going to have to beat this dude, Akhmadaliev, and I think he's going to have to raise his level of performance. What we saw from Inoue in his last fight, that's not going to get it done against Akhmadaliev. He's going to have to raise his game if he's going to continue to be undisputed champion at 122 pounds.
I agree with you that a lot of people are just not familiar enough or sleeping on Akhmadaliev. Yeah, he has wanted this fight for so long. He and Eddie Hearn, who's his promoter, have just gone around and around, how irritated they are being fed step aside money because Inoue wants to pursue other fights, doesn't want to give him his shot. Well, finally, it's going to be done. Even as good as Akhmadaliev is, we've said that about a lot of Inoue's competitors over the years, and he always finds a way to get it done. Will he be challenged by him? He was challenged by Ramon Cardenas in his last fight in May. Who knew? But to his credit, Inoue got up off the deck after really suffering a hard knockdown and took care of his business, eventually forced the referee to step in and stop the fight in the 9th round. Akhmadaliev does have losses. Let's all remember that he lost to Marlon Tapales in a decision that, he felt he won, but I think that he learned from it. He has gotten better. I just think you cannot bet against Naoya in a way. You just can't. And just as he got fired up after that knockdown, it was very recent. That was only in May. I think that it's still a fresh memory that he doesn't want to let that happen again. So he's going to need to be careful. But if he chooses to box rather than bang, and he admits this, that he should do that more often, he'll win. He'll win handily. If he gets drawn into a firefight, you could be dangerous. And he kind of laughed about it after the last fight. He says, well, I like to step in there and bang, which is just such a funny thing to hear from him. But he does. And he'd be best not to do that this time. I'm irritated also that we aren't being offered a broadcast, but with his American co-promoter Top Rank no longer having any sort of relationship with ESPN and ESPN not picking this stuff up, I'm not sure there's going to be an English language broadcast. I would advise anybody, though, who has access to ESPN Deportes, they might pick it up. They have been picking up some of these cards. They picked up the Oscar Valdez card. Now, admittedly, that was in Mexico, but they did pick it up and air it over the weekend. And they aired a fight card the previous weekend as well that slips my mind. So just keep an eye on that. The other problem for the U.S. fans is it's very, very early on Sunday morning. That's a bit of a rough ask. The hardcore, we're used to getting up super early to see this stuff. But are we really going to get up? In some cases, those of you on the East Coast are getting up maybe a few hours after the end of the Canelo and Crawford card. Man, that's maybe swaying the decision not to work so hard to pick up the fight. You're going to have to watch highlights later.
Your thoughts on this upcoming contest, Daniel? You give MJ a decent shot to win?
I actually do. Because he's been wanting this fight for a very, very long time. And we've seen the situation happen before, unfortunately, recently Japanese fighters where they started to look a little bit more ahead and look past their opponent. And unfortunately, that does mean that it leaves everything available for an upset. And Akhmadaliev is the type of guy that can bring that type of upset to the table. Now, do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it's what's going to happen? More than likely not, because Inoue is one of those fighters that understands the assignment as far as what he needs to do. Because he knows that there is a big money fight New Year's Eve or day after Christmas in Japan, maybe even in the Tokyo Dome, maybe in the Saitama Super Arena, maybe Yokohama Arena. where you're going to have a big domestic fight, and I don't think he's going to try to risk losing that. But Akhmadaliev is gonna do everything he can to make sure that aspect of it. If Inoue establishes the jab, stays well with footwork, he'll probably have it fairly easily. If he gets drawn into a firefight, I don't know. That's Akhmadaliev's wheelhouse that he needs to be in order to pull this out.
And I believe we're going to shut down things on that note. Really quick episode. Like I said, I know there are other fights on that card with Canelo and Crawford. We'll probably talk about that next week. Christian Mobili, who's ranked number one at 168, he's fighting on that card. Sergey Bohocek, Callum Walsh, all fighting on that Canelo card. And there's a world title fight on the undercard of Inoue and Akhmadaliev, as Yoshiki Takai is defending his WBO 118-pound title. And just a side note in terms of that, Inoue fight, look for an interesting observer to be ringside, and that is the aforementioned Junto Nakatani, who is officially, it is my understanding, either has or will, in the very near future, will give up his belts at 118 pounds. His next fight will be at 122, likely before the end of the year. And if he and Inoue continue to win, they should or will fight spring 2026 in what should be considered a super fight, arguably the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. But both men have work to do before that can occur. I'm going to go around the panel here. Thanks for everybody who's checking us out on YouTube. Going to go around the panel here. We begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Shout out to Compliance Roofing and Restoration for joining us. Gail from nyfights.com. Let the folks know where they can find you if they want to talk all things boxing.
It's easy. nyfights.com. nyfights.com is where all my content is. You look up my name, Gail Falkenthal, on boxing, on YouTube, all those places you'll find me. There are some great undercard fights on Saturday. I would also recommend the undercard, the before the bell undercard main event is a rematch between Sergey Boachuk and Brandon Adams. Adams is the only guy ever to knock Boachuk out. He's mad and he wants revenge. So that's going to be a fun one to watch.
And talk about your own YouTube show. A free plug, Gail.
I did. Gail Falkenthal on boxing. There it is.
Oh, all right. I go to you, Daniel, from For Boxing News and the Inscriber, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it concerns the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, first of all, I'm sorry we're a little bit late. I'm actually in Virginia right now. That's pulled up around 95, but you see the handle there, Rockers99, RAWKZ99. It's all over. Like I said, on Twitter. I'll never call it Elon. I do not care. But any socials that'll be in that area. And in all actuality, you spoke about it. Like I I got involved a little bit in another podcast event with that covers Joshi wrestling in a way. It's called the Joshi Cyber Squad podcast. They're going to try to do a weekly something with us, and they're also fans of this show. They're going to get into the fight game, and that's good on both ends.
If you want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and I guess now fragrance with yours truly, you can do so on Twitter, because like Daniel, I refuse to call it X, Brother JR at Brother JRSC, Brother JR76, excuse me. If you want to check me out on IG, you can do so, Brother JRSC on TikTok, Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the episode, pound for pound box report kind of has an official sponsor. We are an affiliate with Navrod Fragrances. I'll put it up here again. Please use the code, and I'll put it up here again as we sign off. Excuse me. Use the code Michael W. Michael W. P4P to get 15% off. Again, very affordable prices and whatnot. There you go, NavrodFragrances.com. If you check out the description for those who are checking us out on YouTube, I'll have a link to take you to Navrod Fragrances. There's this um, site right there. And again, use the code MichaelWP4P. You get 15% off of any purchase on the site. Again, the two main fragrances are Irrelevant and Diomari. Irrelevant is more of your spring summer fragrance. Diomari is more of your fall or winter fragrance. Very affordable prices, nothing over $60 over in the entire roster. She also has skin and body care products. Take advantage of the code. Get a little coin off. Buy something for yourself. Buy something for your significant other. With the holiday season, both would make one or both would make excellent holiday presents. Each of those fragrances also come in a 10 ml form, and I'm here to attest that I have both products um, in my collection. Very good. Both last a very long time. You don't need many sprays on my skin. I get at least 8 to 9 hours performance. So um, a little bit of sprays will last you a long while. Gail, Daniel, if you want to get something for yourself, use the code. For those who are watching, if you want to get something for yourself or your significant other, use that code. On the next episode, we will have a recap of Canelo and Bud Crawford, have a recap of Inoue and Akhmadaliev, have a recap of Olascuaga and Camacho-Rivera, have a recap of the All Irish battle for the vacant IBF 147-pound title between Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan. We will recap all of those bouts, and we will talk any and other boxing matters that's happening. Looks like at this present time, next week will be a mostly recap show. So again, I want to thank Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel for Forward Boxing News, and the Inscriber. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 474 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.